Yeah, well, and I think that leads perfectly into arrow pointing up for us, Kipp, and I will start there too, because I wasn't going to start with this one, but it makes perfect sense based on what you were just talking about. Arrows pointing up on the revenue share era. I think, you know what, I will pat our show on the back. I think we've talked about the landscape and what people should be expecting and what really is going on behind the scenes as much or more than just about anyone. And I think that we are seeing some things reflect the new world this cycle. And I'm just going to say it. And you mentioned it there with Texas. Like, I don't think Texas has anything to worry about. I think they're going to figure it out this cycle. But I hear it all the time. And, you know, Susie, I want to give a shout out to Susie Smith in the comment section because she's had some great comments throughout this episode. But this one's saying, like, with the cap taking effect on July 1st, might be why Texas doesn't come in big for Atkinson. I've been hearing it time and time again. People say, oh, I'm worried about this team or I'm worried about that team with every prospect because at the end, they can just drop this giant bag and it changes everything. And I got to say, I roll my eyes because it means that nobody listened to the show back in February when we were breaking down what this world is going to look like. And the reality of it is, you can drop a bag, a big one, on an individual prospect if you want. But it is going to come at the expense and sacrifice of the rest of your roster. People say Texas has so much money. Georgia has $14.5 million that they are able to use through the athletic department to pay just their football roster. Everyone has money in this new era. It doesn't matter if you're NC State, which, again, ACC schools might have a little bit less. It doesn't matter if you're Vanderbilt or if you're Georgia. You have actual money that you are able to provide to your players straight from the athletic department. Now, there is still, this is where arrow pointing up on the revenue share era, there's still some gamesmanship that needs to go on in terms of how you get a little bit creative because, as I wrote about on Dogs 24/7 this week, you mentioned it, Georgia partners with Learfield. There are other schools that have had these partnerships. This is going to be a partnership where Georgia is trying to help generate marketing deals above the cap. So Learfield is a third-party organization that is going to be working with Georgia to help generate deals with Gatorade and Delta and Adidas and Nike and whoever else it might end up being based on who the prospects are, so that those players can make money outside of the revenue share agreements that they sign and go above the cap. In Georgia's case, as it's been told to me, we're talking $14.5 million for the football roster from the revenue share, and then maybe another $5 to $6 million above that. So you're looking at about $20 million, $21 million for a football roster. That's going to be a pretty much run-of-the-mill for Texas, Ohio State, Miami, Alabama, USC, Penn State. You know, name a big football program, Notre Dame, name a big football program. I promise you they are going to be operating from very similar budgets. This is different than it has been because we've already seen headlines this year of a school like Texas operating off of like a $40 million budget. That was made possible because they were able to bridge the gap between booster-backed collective front-loading deals like happened in Justice Terry's recruitment, and then the revenue share where they're able to actually distribute that money from the $14.5 million that they have. I bring up all of this to say, stop talking about recruiting and saying like, oh, we've seen it the last 2 years. Texas can just do this or Texas can just do that. Things that were happening 2 years ago or even 1 year ago, even in December, are not going to be possible in the 2026 class or 2027 class. I'm not sitting here saying that this is going to be the model that we are going to be living off of forever because I don't know that to be true. But I am saying you can't just go give $3 million in year one to a player that you really, really want because that means that you're not going to be able to pay as much as you need to the rest of your roster. And so I think that you are seeing certain schools that maybe were aggressive with front-loading collective contracts. you're seeing them maybe suffer some of those consequences right now because they're not able to just straight up win money recruitments. Now, does that stop a school from going and paying $2 million for a guy that maybe Georgia only wanted to pay $700,000 for? Yeah, that school could do that, and they could win out in that individual recruitment. And Georgia will live with that. We don't have to name specific examples of that happening in this recruiting cycle, but it's happened. We know who they are, and Georgia can live with those. And guess what? A week where you get Chase Calicut and James Johnson and Craig Dandridge and Kamari Brooks and Shadarius Tootle doesn't happen if you overspent on an individual prospect here or there just to win an optics recruiting battle. And that's just the way of the new world. Kipp, please feel free to disagree with me if you disagree with me.
I look forward to seeing the court challenges, the antitrust law violations when this clearinghouse voids an NIL deal. I'm interested in seeing who submits a deal to this app that may not pass. And I also am curious, what are the ramifications of programs that maybe don't even submit it? Like, I don't think this is going to pass. I don't submit it. A school that lost out in that recruitment maybe sends, a text to a text to a text, and maybe the clearinghouse finds out they didn't and then asks the program to. It's fascinating to see how this is going to be handled, because yeah, we got this thing approved, but is it going to work? How long is it going to last? You don't have subpoena powers, so it just makes it difficult to circumvent maybe things not working out in an NIL deal that the clearinghouse wants. And so we're still going to navigate that and find out. I think it's going to be entertaining just seeing what happens. Like we just had coaches talk about Georgia tampering in the transfer portal. What do you think is going to happen in recruitments whenever someone loses out on someone and they don't think it's a deal that's on the up and up as far as the NIL clearinghouse is concerned? They're going to turn each other in, or they're going to get someone whispering in their ear, "Hey, we're doing this too. Don't do this." Like, I don't think really anything's changed, but I do think you're just seeing like programs are just preparing for all situations. And one of those is these are the rules in place. So like, as far as the budgets are concerned, we got all of the paperwork here. We're doing everything as correctly as possible. As far as the revenue share, it's the outside NIL deals where we're going to see what happens. We're going to learn a lot about fair market value over the next year. We're going to be hearing that a lot, and we're going to find out what that really means, and whether a high school quarterback who's never played in college, if his fair market value is $3 million, what should it be? What can it be? What passes this app? Like, who gets rejected? It's gonna be fun. I'm here for it. We're still gonna have college football. For us to have all these off-season like roller coaster rides, I don't think it's bad for the sport, because it's just fun to see like tantrums and college coaches get upset, and at the end of the day, they're all going to fill out their roster of players, and they're all going to suit up, and we're gonna love every minute of it.
Yep, absolutely. And look, we had Chris Jacobs in the YouTube comment section as well, who's been very active, and I appreciate that today as well. Say, don't be naive, like bagmen, whatever. I get it. I'm not naive. I know what the world is. I know what it's been for 50 years. There is a difference between, and I'm not throwing out any accusations on anyone, just understanding the reality of the world. Like, there's a difference between like $5,000 cash for something and $1 million contracts, which when we were talking about the collective era, booster back collectives, like we're talking about like asinine amounts of money, which is still going to be happening. It's just going to be done legally through revenue share. And there is a certain extent of a cap for all of these teams. And teams that weren't able to raise $14.5 million in the past through their collectives will now have access to more money than they had in the past as well. And so when people say like Texas has so much money, it's like, well, any athletic department that's running itself well is going to have about $14 million to be able to operate with. And that's before you try and go above the cap for money that you're trying to generate through marketing deals. I will also go arrow pointing up on the 2027 class. We had 2027 wide receiver Gavin Honore from Mater Dei on the show a couple of weeks ago. Now Georgia has added another piece from the West Coast in the 2027 class, and that is Dante Wright from Long Beach Poly in California. 2 commitments, 2 guys from California. They know each other well. Kind of a cool full circle moment here. Dante Williams' first coaching job out of college was at a junior college, LA Harbor. Dante Wright Sr. was on the roster at the time, and Dante Williams coached him. Certainly leaned on that relationship to be able to get Dante Wright Jr. into the class as early as he did. I'm sure that Dante Williams is feeling old these days, knowing that he might be coaching the son of a dad that he also coached. But yeah, the 2026 class is still putting its finishing touches on it, but the 2027 class is already underway. Kipp, what you got from an arrow pointing up?
First off, arrow pointed up to Delaware and Missouri State. Welcome to FBS football. You've officially joined. We now have 2 more members of the Conference USA. And I think for Delaware, we all know Joe Flacco. I think Rich Gannon played there back in the day. They bring back 2 or 3 of their quarterbacks. They're in the top 5 in returning production on defense. Got to watch out for them in the Conference USA this season. And I think that, they've kind of been on a run the last couple of years. They've been an outstanding team. So they've definitely earned that spot. Missouri State's a funny one for me because the only thing I know about Missouri State, other than the fact they're the Bears, is that they hired Bobby Petrino as their head coach. And he left to take the Texas A&M coordinator job. So he was there, I think it was like 2020. And then the current coach, Ryan Beard, that's Bobby Petrino's son-in-law. So they promoted him to the head coach, and he's the head coach there. But congrats to those 2 programs. Arrow pointed up for them for joining the group. I think we're at 136 now. But my other arrow pointed up, it kind of starts off with you, Ben, because this last podcast, him and Jordan were talking about where do we think Asa Newell's going to end up? And well, Jordan said, you know what? Maybe the Hawks would do well by trading down from 13 and drafting Asa Newell. And goodness, you know what? Like I run the Hawks thread and we're at like 100 pages. And they're obviously, there's a lot of people that want Asa Newell on the Hawks. Deputy Dog leading the charge there, I believe. But never did I really think about the Hawks trading down and getting Asa Newell. Most of the time they had the 22 pick. And I was like, yeah, he'd be perfect there. But then they traded it, got our guy Porzingis. And so, completely dismissed it. But they traded down and picked up Asa Newell. So that I give you part of this arrow pointed up. And then you're going to be sharing it because Atlanta sports teams, arrow pointed up. We got one on the way down, the Braves right now. They're a mess. They're losing everybody, but it's a seesaw in Atlanta. So for them to go down, the Hawks, the Falcons, you both drafted Georgia players in the first round, and you got outstanding value in doing it. Like Asa Newell, picking him at 23, like I think he was Jordan talked about it, everywhere from 9th to like 17th. And I thought at 15, he made sense at that point. The Hawks traded down 10 spots and got a Georgia guy who makes a lot of sense for what Georgia's looking for the Hawks are looking for in spacing in their front court. Getting him at 23, outstanding value. So you're sharing it also with Ansi Saleh, a guy that the Hawks were looking for a GM, didn't know who was going to be, interviewed some guys, promoted Ansi. Everyone's like, oh, great. They're just promoting a guy. He's not going to be able to do it. He has had a hell of a month.
Mm-hmm.
You traded down 10 spots from 13 to 23. You pick up a guy that should have gone 16 to 18, and then you land a completely unprotected pick that would be the better of two teams that are just completely volatile right now. I mean, the Bucks just let Damian Lillard go. They're going to pay him $112 million to not play basketball for them the next 5 years. Giannis is mad. They replaced Brook Lopez with Miles Turner, but you don't have Dame anymore. So that team is in flux. Very much. I mean, if Giannis wants out, you're toast. In any point, he could ask that. Pelicans, the one who traded this to the Hawks, why would you give up your unprotected pick next year? Never mind the fact it's the better of what you and the Bucks. You guys are a complete mess right now. DeJounte Murray's coming off an Achilles injury of his own in January. You traded for Jordan Poole. You drafted Jeremiah Fears. None of those guys played no defense whatsoever. You got Zion as your best player. He provides no spacing at power forward. And what do? You let the Hawks entice you, because this is what happened. The Hawks said, we love Derek Queen. We're going to take him. We're going to take him. And you built him up, and the Pelicans drafted him. He's a center that has no spacing. So you got a center next to your power forward, no spacing whatsoever. And then what's your big free agent edition right now? Kevin Looney, a center with no spacing. Like this, you are set up to be in the lottery next year, and you gave that up to move up 10 spots in a draft. I mean, honestly, this is a masterclass in GM. You can't have a better first month than what he's had as the Hawks GM. Like I said, Kristaps Porzingis, outstanding fit as our second or third center. And then you bring in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You bring in Luke Kennard, who's a sharpshooter. This is the most excited I've been as a Hawks fan in over a decade. I mean, I'm trying to look back. I think 2013 was an outstanding offseason. But again, the Hawks are set up now for success. A lot of versatility and no bad contracts. So arrow pointing up. Ansi Saleh, outstanding job first month on the job. It's really exciting to be a Hawks fan right now.
Yeah, I love both of those arrow pointing ups. Was not familiar with Ansi's game. Very impressive. I threw out a slide down to 19, package that to the Nets with Cam Johnson, which may or may not have made sense as a fit. Instead, you get to trade down to 23. You end up getting Asa Newell at 23, which I would not have in a million years expected that was going to be possible. And then you get the Pelicans pick, which you just laid out the perfect scenario for they're maybe going to be a top 10 pick next year. And then the Bucks, I mean, I don't know about you, but I am now in full on root for Giannis to force his way out and they get nothing in return. And now it's like, I'm just going to be Pelicans Bucks scoreboard watching all year. The Hawks might've just found their way into a top 5 pick somehow and got a player that I would have been totally fine with them taking anywhere from 15 to 18 probably. So great job there. And you didn't maybe know this, Kipp, but shout out Missouri State. I was actually born in Springfield, Missouri. Both of my parents were professors at Southwest Missouri State, now Missouri State. So I've been a Bears fan for life. And shout out to Missouri State. Always got to rep them whenever I get the chance. So I love that was your arrow pointing up.